Hey Tigers, how is it going? Welcome to Mirchi Tech YouTube channel. In the previous video, I briefly talked about dependency injection concept, and I just talked about the is a concept only. Like I did not went through the how we actually use in the real world examples. Basically, I've kept that video very language agnostic. I did not use any language specific concepts there. Here today I want to discuss about how we use dependency injection in Python language, specifically using the injector package. Like in Python there was a publicly available injector package, and in order to install it, like it's a open source by the way, like it's in PyPy repository only. Like in order to download this we can use pip install and injector command. This with that we can you download this package. So they have documented some of the concepts here. Though they have some documentation, I feel like this documentation is not very great, especially for large scale projects. Let's say if we have a project with 100 classes, and if you have to define definitions for 100, they did not have a they did not document the standard way how we can construct a large scale in for a large scale project. They have a solution, but it's just that the documentation is not fully there. So in the I also see there are very less number of YouTube videos on the injector package, so hence I started this video series. So without wasting your time, let's go through their examples and try to digest something. So here what they actually done is they have created they just imported this. They imported the value from the injector package, like from they used injector class, and they imported the inject decorator as well. They have created a class called inner, and here they did not add any dependency. Basically they did not define any parameter to the constructor, but they have created a instance variable 42 equal to 42, and they have created one more class called outer, and in the constructor they created a dependency. They added a inner as a parameter and defined they basically added inner as a dependency here, and they are just assigning to the instance variable inner. If interestingly they used this at the rate inject decorator. So what this conveys is it's indirectly saying to the injector, saying that hey, I have outer, I'm an outer class, I have a dependency on inner. When I use this inject decorator, it's your responsibility to inject the definition of inner here. So if you see at injector, right, like here we created the injector instance, and here we are just calling injector dot get and outer. We are not passing the inner definition here, we are not passing the value here, but it's automatically created outer instance, outer in class instance, and then they were able to get the 42. So we can try to replicate it as well. I just replicated to the Python, and I had the same code. So without wasting your time, I can quickly run this. Yeah, it's returning 42 only for me. I can change it to maybe something like this. Yeah, we don't need to change. Yeah, I will see if it returns 45. Yeah, it returns. So wow, it does the job. So if you are wondering how it's happening, it's basically it binded the dependencies. So to understand more, like let's try to go through other examples as well how they are doing. So here they just replaced constructor with data classes. Basically here outer does not have constructor, but instead they have defined it as a data class. So they just, I don't want to replicate the same and run with you, but I will maybe go through the other example. I think they have full example. I think it's relatively better to get the more context. Here they have defined multiple variables from the injector module, provider, injector, inject, and singleton. So in this video, I don't want to go through in depth of each of the items. Maybe I can create a separate video explaining each of these, but in this video I will just keep the context very relevant, so that our focus is just to run an service where we can define some our definitions, and we will be able to process. So for this demo I kept them separated, so I will just focus on this. So let's try to understand their example. So they imported a SQLite 3. They created a class called request handler, and here they have defined SQLite 3 connection. There is a class called connection coming from the SQLite 3 module, and they have added it as a dependency, and they used it at the rate injector. So what this says is, they are indirectly saying to the injector module, whenever you find out this SQLite 3 connection class, you need to inject it dynamically. You need to inject it. So let's go through if bit below. Here they have created one more class, and here they have this connection string, and this is I feel it's a string data type, I feel. And if you see, like, they are explaining ways of binding. So there are two ways of binding dependencies. One way is using the binder. So injector, it's kind of coming from the injector module itself. So I think they did not have added here, but it's coming from the binder is also from the injector module only. So what we can do is, one way is, we can create our own definition. For example, connection string. Definitely, like, if how to get the configuration definition, like injector don't know what value to pass, right? Like, because connection string will change from one customer to one customer. Like, it will be very different for each project, right? Like, so it needs to be provided by us only. So the magic is, like, we provide our own configuration. So here I think they were trying to use the in-memory only, but if they are hosting somewhere, if they want to provide the connection string, they can definitely provide it here. This is how we can define our instance, and here they have binded it. So what they actually saying is, hey, whenever you see this configuration class, very important, injector library solely relies on the class type only. So class type, here the class type is configuration. So they are like saying, hey, wherever you are asked for the configuration class definitions, always refer to the configure this value, this variable. So here they are directly saying to you reuse this constructed variable only, and they are also defining the scope as singleton. That means, like, whenever someone asked you for this instance, like, don't run it multiple times, like, treat it as a singleton and always take this definition from here only. So that's what they have conveyed. This is one way of doing it. This is actually not very scalable, especially for large projects. So consider the same example, like, our project has 100 classes, and if we have to define 100 class definitions as a part of single method, it's truly not maintainable. And if we ever have to change definition of one class, of course we can search using command of in IDEs and change it, but it's not maintainable in my opinion. It's not basically we have to add spaces, and we have to deal with a lot of mess. So I feel like it's not scalable for for a large project. They have concept called module. This is actually used in large projects. It's also nice. It's generally like this way of segregating the problem. So here also the core concept remains same. Like in the previous example, they ultimately need to bind something to the configuration class, and they need to define the scope. So here also we need to provide the scope. Scope is decorator singleton. We can, if we avoid it, the same definition will run multiple times for multiple instances. So here what they did is SQLite 3 connection. They kind of called out, hey, whenever you observe this SQLite 3 connection, when you are asked for SQLite 3 connection instance, always look for this only, always return this only, always execute this. But at the same time you have to treat it as singleton. So that means in first time you will execute this, but next time, the second time, when the same dependency is asked second time, you don't necessarily need to execute it, because it was already executed in the first attempt. So you can return the same object created in the first attempt. Basically that means same object in all other attempts as well, because we have defined it as a singleton. So very important, like always the injector module relies on the class only. So yeah, let's see what they have done. So they have created injector instance. Why in the parameter injector takes list of dependable things. I feel one is configure for method. Basically it takes the callable it takes the callable thing actually. So configure for testing, it's a method they have defined where they are passing the trying to take the binder, and they are also passing the module instance itself. Ideally I feel they should not pass module instance. I think it must just be the class type only, not the instance. So I think they should not pass these parentheses in my opinion, but it's a kind of official documentation, so I can't really comment on it. Yeah, we can take a look. But if, as you can see, like they are just using this injector dot get request handler. So all the dependencies will be resolved dynamically at the time of this call only. If I have to explain, like in the request handler has the SQL connection, right? At the whenever the call comes to here, it will look for the injector will have some sort of in-memory cache kind of thing, where it will have the mapping of classes to its definitions. So here SQL connection, somewhere here we have defined, right, database module. So it will execute these lines when the call comes to SQL connection. And here also, before executing this directly, here we again added the configuration as a kind of dependency to this, right? It's like saying that, hey, in order to get the SQL connection, you have this as a dependency. It's not necessarily this configuration entire object will be passed, but at least some of the information is needed, so that's why it is there. So basically SQL connection is coming from the open source library. This configuration object is created by us, but it has certain attribute called connection string, which needs to be passed to the connection, so to create the connection. So that's what it is. Before executing this, it will execute this. So it needs to find out the configuration dependency definition. So here somewhere we must have defined configuration definition. Yeah, here only we have binded the definition. Hey, whenever this configuration class instance is requested, use the configuration instance. So here this will be used here. And once this dependency is resolved, then this code is executed, and this code will execute, and it will return back to the previous place here. So here we got the dependency, and then it will execute it, and it will go back to this injector dot handler. Basically it will come to here, and then it will call the handler dot get. If to see that, I think it will just call this. So it will call the db dot cursor. So I think connection is coming from the open source library. It must have some cursor method. So and then it's executing, and then it's basically doing this. So they just added it. So I don't want to execute, but they also kind of mentioned, basically they clearly segregated between singleton and other classes. So here, like they kind of called out, they tried to call this object same multiple times, like 2 times, and it's coming as true. That means like same object is being created multiple times instead of multiple times, instead of different objects. So that's what it is. But for large projects this is not enough. So I will show you the real world example how it is being used. So I will use the same example from the previous dependency injection concept video. We have some interfaces. Basically we have database interface. It's purely blank, it doesn't do anything. Also this is for demo purpose, that's why I did not have any real-time values. So it's I have defined an email service interface, and then I have the payment processor interface, which were kind of blank only. That's completely fine to have them as blank. And I have actual models created at the runtime. That is at the here at the infrastructure. So I have two versions, like MySQL database and PostgreSQL database. Like I have both are coming using this, and similarly for email I have SendGrid email service, SMTP. Like they are taking the using the IML scraper in service. Definitely these are not the interfaces. In Python there is no concept called interface. These are the just the abstract classes. And here in payment we have these PayPal and the Stripe payment processors as well, come using the iPayment processor as a parent. So I have these, and I will focus on the service right now. I just had models here just for better tracking. I will go through this model service. This is the where I want to focus on. Here, as I call out in the demo as well, I have dependencies. Basically the order service has dependencies on email service, payment processor, and database service. Instead of directly defining the concrete classes as dependencies, we must rely on the abstract classes, basically the interfaces as dependencies here. And here we also use it at the rate injector. Basically it's like delegating the definitions job to the outer world, basically to the injector. Hey, I just define the interfaces I support. It's up to your job what kind of definitions you provide, what kind of how you construct this order service. It's up to your responsibility. So here we are just assigning it, and we have this code. I don't want to focus so much on this, but the core idea is like this code will be calling the payment processor, email service, and database, and basically try to perform some operations there. So that's the main goal. If you are wondering like how the definitions are resolved, right? Like we maintain these dependencies in the in a separate folder. Like it's better to maintain in a separate folder. That's basically like we kind of created a dependency injection. So here we kind of follow the similar pattern. We have library called Injector module. From Injector module, like we have created here. And here we have this email scraper. Basically we are saying, hey, whenever you see the email scraper as a dependency, you need to use this definition. Basically this is my abstraction. Whenever you see this abstraction, you need to pass this real-time concrete class. So here we are passing the email scraper. Similarly for a payment processor, you need to pass the Stripe payment processor, and for database we need to pass the MySQL database. Yeah, something like this. And here here we were defining create injector. We are kind of creating the injector class. Injector is coming from injector library, and we are passing this module only, this the custom module that we just created. So the advantage, I think you must have already cracked this, right? Like the advantage of these modules is you can create multiple modules for your purposes. Like you can segregate, right? Like maybe for order processor you will rely on this, but let's say if you have a different maybe profile processor or something like that, right? Like you can create a different module there. So and you can still use a single injector, and you can pass all modules as a list here. So that will also be better for maintenance as well, right? So that's why module approach is way better, and needs to be used for larger scale. And I think from here you must also have gotten the idea. So for example, today our code is very relying on the SMTP email service. Tomorrow we may want to migrate to the SendGrid email service, right? So we don't necessarily need to make changes in the order service because it's just relying on the abstractions. So at that time we just need to tweak it here only. So if we can just replace this with the SendGrid email service, that should do the job. And similarly database as well. So let's say if MySQL database demands huge money, right? Like, and if we already have a way, if we already have a Postgres database, and if the code change is there, we don't necessarily need to make code changes in all places. We just need to replace it with the Postgres database definition. And since the order since this where is this order service relying on the database interface, if it has the methods defined properly, right? Basically, in the Postgres database that you are defining, if you have the save method defined properly to accept this argument, right, that should do the job out of the box. So yeah, this is very much better. And also I want to quickly show the test cases as well, how we can do the test cases. I think before that, maybe we can do the quick demo how it works. Yeah, you can see. I will just expand it, the terminal. Yeah, otherwise it's okay. Yeah, basically it's these are just the comments that we have added. Basically it's processing order, and it's just executing the real code. I think somewhere we must be passing some code bug, so I don't want to focus so much, but I think you must have gotten the idea. So by binding this, like, I think one thing I did not call out is like where this create injector is being called, right? This needs to be called at the entry point. So for example, in my example, so I'm calling from the service demo, so that's why it needs to be called from here. So let's say similarly you must be having your entry points, right? Like if you have a API server where you must be accepting requests at the endpoint, like slash process order, right? Like then you need to call this, you need to first call this create injector, get the injector, and then process the other code. Like you use the injector dot get order service, and then process whatever method this order service has. So, and like let's say if you don't have API server, instead if you have a ECS task running, right? Like there also you must provide the entry point in the Docker. So there you will configure. You need to first create this inject class, where you will be passing the relevant modules, and after getting the injector object, get the actual actual instance, concrete class instance, and then process it. Basically in this example, get the order service instance using the injector.get, and then process it. So basically here order, let's assume for the meantime, like you assume it as a your entry point. So your responsibility is getting calling this injector, and basically inside of this we are also provided the definitions, class definitions, and we need to call the injector.get, and here we have this order service, and on the order service, like we are processing the order. Yeah, we are calling the processing order, and we are kind of returning back to the user. Yeah, this is the real demo, and maybe I can also show you how it simplifies the tests as well. So in tests, I don't want to focus so much on the models, like our models. It's just the basically it's not new, nothing related to this. But what I actually done is, like here in the marks, I am creating my own classes, mark classes with email services, basically with interfaces as the parents, and I'm kind of implementing all the methods. Let's say if the interface has two methods, I'm implementing two methods, and I'm providing my own mark methods. So here that's why we had mark classes. We have defined three mark classes for three interfaces. And in the test order service, right? In test order service, like the first step is in the setup, like we have defined the mark classes first, mock class instances first, and then create a order service. So order service we are using the original order service object only. It's just that instead of passing the original dependencies, we are just using the mock dependencies. So and we are doing the sample order. I think this is just for setup, and in the real class as well, in the real setup, real thing as well. Here this is using the unit test module. So every time this unit test runs, so it will run the setup first. So that means these things will run, and then they must be using this sample adder somewhere. Yeah, they are using the process adder. I think while calling the process adder, they are passing this sample adder, and based on that they were performing some evaluations. So performing some assertions. So let's try to run unit tests as well. Yeah, everything is passing. So yeah, I think mostly I feel you must have gained some knowledge. I think today I mostly focused on the how we create things only, and there are a lot of things to cover. Maybe I will cover in the next videos. I especially deep diving, understanding the concepts like injector, provider, binder, singleton, like decorators and all. Like maybe I will cover in the next video. But in for the just calling it out, in the injector purely depends on the class type only. So you need to define the class definitions using the class. So here we are using this class, and we are binding, we are kind of saying this is the definition, and here also we are saying, hey, this is the class, and we are binding this object. So it purely relies on the works on the class type only. Yeah, just do remember. And also if you are wondering about the code, right, like I have a GitHub project here, so I will attach this link in the YouTube tutorial. Like I don't have it updated, like I will get it updated by the time you are looking for. I will just attach in the YouTube video only. Okay, goodbye tigers, thanks for your patience. Thanks for watching the video. Bye.